At the age of 3, this boy named a city he had never been to. Then he said that he had a family there. At first, his parents thought it was just childish imagination, but everything changed when he started sharing details, names of people, streets, and even his own house. They decided to check, and it turned out that everything he described actually existed. What's more, this child led them straight to the place where, according to him, he had lived in his previous life. When he saw those people, he recognized them, he called them by name, and he told them things that no one could possibly know, except the person he claimed to have been before. This case became one of thousands studied by Dr. Ian Stevenson, a scientist who devoted decades of his life to proving that reincarnation might actually be real. And this is not an isolated incident. There are thousands of such stories. Many of them have been carefully documented by researchers. But the main question remains, how is this even possible? How can a child remember things that never happened to him? The phenomenon of the soul's migration, or its transition from one life to another, is scientifically known as reincarnation. The most respected expert in this field is considered to be Dr. Ian Stevenson, a Canadian biochemist and psychiatrist. For 40 years, he deeply studied this subject and ultimately published a series of serious scientific works in which he described roughly 3,000 such cases. Dr. Ian Stevenson approached the investigation of past life memories with the utmost care and thoroughness possible. He made every effort to completely rule out any questionable explanations, from outright fraud to situations where people sincerely believe they are recalling past lives, when in reality they are only reproducing images created by their own imagination or things they once read or saw in movies. He called this mistaken acceptance of external information as personal memories cryptomnesia. That is exactly how Stevenson explained cases where so-called past life memories were actually linked to forgotten details of the current life, rather than genuine events from a previous incarnation. So, how did he manage to minimize the influence of cryptomnesia? Quite simply, he devoted the bulk of his research to children. In Dr. Stevenson's opinion, children's testimonies are far more convincing than those of adults. The reason is that young children simply haven't had enough time to read historical novels, watch lots of films, or absorb other people's stories that they might unintentionally present as their own memories. As a result, the scientist collected and meticulously documented more than 800 cases involving children who showed signs of having memories of reincarnation. One particularly well-known case involves an Indian professor who had always been extremely skeptical about the idea of soul transmigration. The story concerns a boy born in 1944. As soon as he began to speak, among his very first words, along with the usual mama and papa, was the name of a nearby city. Naturally, his parents were surprised, but they assumed the child had overheard the name somewhere and simply repeated it, as little kids often do. It never even crossed their minds that something extraordinary might be happening to their son. But the situation changed dramatically when, at 3 years old, the boy suddenly told his mother that she didn't need to cook food for him, because he already had a wife in one of the Indian cities, specifically the one whose name he had uttered as a toddler. Later, he added that he owned a biscuit factory in that very town and began insistently asking to be taken there as soon as possible. His parents understandably refused. After that, the child started sharing more and more details about his previous life day after day, insisting that he had once been a successful businessman and had died exactly 9 months and 9 days before his current birth. Finally, the parents could take no more and took him to a psychologist. The specialist advised them to travel to the named city, after all, to put an end to these fantasies once and for all. But when they arrived, virtually every single statement the boy had made turned out to be true. What's more, without any guidance or maps, he easily found his way through a large city to the exact house where, according to him, he had once lived. It turned out that relatives from his previous incarnation still lived there. Upon meeting them, he flawlessly named every single one of them and shared intimate personal details about their lives that he could not possibly have known in advance. The parents and everyone who witnessed this astonishing event had no choice but to accept the obvious. The boy genuinely remembered his past life. This naturally raises a very reasonable question. If children really do retain memories of previous incarnations, why don't they constantly tell their parents about them? The answer is quite straightforward and down to earth. To the children themselves, these memories are just a normal part of their inner world. They treat them almost the same way as fantasies or games and don't attach much importance to them. Young kids haven't yet realized that adults experience the world differently, and by the time they grow older, such memories usually fade into the background. That's why children's perception of reincarnation remains something of a blind spot in the study of this phenomenon. And honestly, many adults, upon hearing such revelations from their children, would simply brush them off with, "Stop making up nonsense." And that would be a mistake. If we treated these stories with respect and attention, we would not only understand our children better, we would help them grow into more balanced and happier people, and we would likely discover important things about ourselves as well. After all, knowledge of past lives can truly explain a great deal about our own character. That is precisely why, from the last century right up to the present day, so many psychologists and physicians have carefully studied this subject. Unusually vivid talents in children are often explained by experience gained in previous incarnations. In one of his books, Stevenson wrote, "People often ask me, why bother investigating past lives at all? I usually reply that regression can provide a key to understanding why a person behaves in certain ways or acts the way they do in this life." By turning to past incarnations, we uncover the causes of many things in our present existence. Such knowledge explains the sources of current difficulties and problems. When a person realizes why they act in a particular way, they gain far greater control over their life. Working with past life memories is also an extremely powerful therapeutic tool. It allows us to address the root cause of a problem at a deep level, instead of merely fighting its surface symptoms. Traces of past lives are imprinted in the DNA of each of the more than 10 trillion cells that make up our body. Understanding previous incarnations makes it possible to heal illnesses or conditions that may have persisted through many lifetimes. Awareness of this reveals to us the essence of human karma. Of course, for some people, such knowledge can become a heavy burden. After all, who knows who we were before? Not everyone was a noble figure or even an ordinary decent person in past lives. It's quite possible that someone committed acts they would now feel deeply ashamed of. That is why a number of scientists and mystics believe that our near-total forgetfulness of previous incarnations serves as a kind of protective mechanism, shielding us from self-loathing or profound disillusionment with ourselves. After conducting a vast number of studies and experiments, Dr. Stevenson developed his own method to help people recall their past lives. He stated, "I am convinced that thanks to my method, in the near future all people will be able to remember their previous lives as naturally as they remember what happened a few days ago. One can only hope that this will come true. Still, some of us have not lost the memory of who we were in a past life. If you have such recollections too, share them in the comments. Your story might inspire others to explore this direction. Who knows? Perhaps this is exactly how you will find your soulmate from another incarnation." And to everyone who believes in reincarnation, please like and subscribe to the channel. All the very best.